Hello and welcome back to Football 301. I'm your host, Nate Tice. We are in the offseason. We still have the glow of that 40 burger in New Orleans from the Eagles. Philadelphia Eagles, of course, Super Bowl champions. But today, we're going to kick off the offseason. Even in my Google Doc, it went from 2024 NFL season to this is my first doc that was 2025 NFL season, because we're going to go over some storylines, some questions that we have for the offseason. To help me do that, it's my guy, Mr. Verts, Charles McDonald, who survived New Orleans, survived his trip from New Orleans. How you doing today, Chuck?
That's kind of where I was going to start off. I'm recovering. For those who are listening, I sounded so much worse like yesterday and 2 days ago.
Yeah, you sound fine.
I know. I sound better today. It's funny because one of my very close friends, Marcel Louis Jacques, is getting married next month, and the bachelor party starts tomorrow. So I'm gonna head on a plane tomorrow.
Oh man, where's that?
It's in Raleigh, so it's not too bad. Like, we're gonna go to some basketball games, go golfing. It's gonna be fun.
Okay.
Yeah, it's cool little boys weekend.
Tobacco Road bachelor party. Right, that's what that sounds like.
Precisely. But it was an experience, man. I'm just now like fully recovered energy wise from the escapade that I personally put myself through on Monday and Sunday night. But we made it, and we were ready to move on and turn a new leaf, turn a new page, put the accents in the past, and talk about the 2025 season.
Because that escapade took you from Charles McDonald was flying back from New Orleans. Okay, he lives in New York. He flew through Denver.
Yes.
To get back to New York.
Yes. Well,
the strangest commute I have ever heard, strangest layover I've ever heard getting home. But I know there was reasons.
Our very good mutual friend Keegan Abdul and I, we
from Next Gen Stats. Yeah,
Next Gen Stats. We kind of decided now, like, if we're ever traveling for work at the same time, same spot, and we end up at the last day and we're there together, we're gonna go all out the last night and just party. So I don't remember the first time we did it, but the second time last year was in Indianapolis at the Combine. We went to like some blues bar until like 3 o'clock in the morning. And then we were sitting outside Frenchman Street. We were like, hey, 3 times the tradition. So I guess, Keegan, if you listen to this, which I know you probably are, see you in Indy in 2 weeks.
Right. See you at that blues bar or whatever. Keegan has to max it out. He's always there early and has to leave late. It's like, I'm always like, I parachute in and out. And I'm like, later. See ya. Thanks for keeping it warm for me. No, but I'm glad you survived, because I needed my buddy back. I wanted to make sure in the text that I felt that I empathized with you as someone that has done the sweaty, long night flights home. I haven't had to do that, where you were basically flying to Australia.
Well,
it's basically how long you flew and traveled.
The worst part was, if you want to go to yahoo.com and read my column from the postgame where I talked to the Eagles defensive line in various states of sobriety.
Good plug.
I was in the Eagles locker room, and I got champagne poured all over my shirt by Nolan Smith, who was having himself a very good time. And then I went straight from there to Frenchman Street. And then I woke up late, missed my first flight, had to run to the airport, get put on a second flight that had me going from New Orleans to Denver to New York. So I was wearing the same clothes that were covered in cigar smoke and beer for like 30 hours. It was rough. But once I made it back, like, it's one of those things where you get home and you're just like, okay, that was kind of a cool story that I can tell. But in the midst of it, no, I want to die.
Yeah, the unguppying shower is an all-timer, probably. That felt good. Yeah, you got a couple streets of New Orleans off of you the flight home.
Not all of them, most of them.
Not all of them. Well, speaking of stank, our first news item we're going to go over is the Jets have officially parted ways with Aaron Rodgers. They coded it a little differently, that they're in new terms with it's not me, it's you. It kind of came across with the Jets. That's what they tried to make this sell, but it was like, okay, we kind of know what happened here. But Aaron Rodgers no longer with the Jets. We were going to cover this anyways, but it was more Jets shenanigans was how I had it labeled. But now, they've moved on from Rodgers. Yeah, they gave us something right before we went live, which is always great. All the nice quotes. It seemed like they want to be amicable as always. I do know that a lot of head coaches and general managers that interviewed there, not just that there were a lot quantity wise, a lot of them kind of had the same answer to the Aaron Rodgers conundrum, which was, I probably lean to part ways with him. And I can kind of have that confirmed. People I've talked to that I interviewed there, and also people just through the grapevine. But that was kind of, it seemed like it was going to be inevitable. And whoever ended up being the head coach and GM, Aaron Mogi, decided that is the move as well. But Charles, what I wanted to ask you, Aaron Rodgers departs. We don't have to go over all the fun stuff with the Aaron Rodgers time in New York, but Bill Barnwell did a great job of summing it all up in one tweet. 2 second-round picks, $75 million, signing Allen Lazard, Randall Cobb, and Tim Boyle. A third-round pick and $11 million for Devontae Adams, Nathaniel Hackett as offense coordinator. I love that. That was a bullet point. I also include Mike Williams, Tyron Smith. Were kind of like stopgaps to get him through this year. He also loved Malachi Corley, which is why they took him in the third round. Malachi Corley finished his rookie season with 3 catches on 6 targets for 16 yards. Receiver scouting might not be Rodgers' strong suit, is what I'm saying. But
yeah.
That was the Jets' investment to Rodgers, with not a lot of wins to come from it. What do you think about all this? First off, Chuck, what's maybe like your little parting shot, I guess, parting sentence about the Rodgers Jets experience?
Why the hell did this see a statement and a thank you video? For what? Thank you for what? You played 4 plays the first season and the second season. Boy, how they get games to win? 5 games?
5.
Well, I don't want. If I'm Aaron Rodgers, don't remind me of this. This is the worst part of my entire career. Just
let me walk away.
Forget, because people remember what happened here. I might not be able to get another job in a few weeks. But that's really all I had to say about it, because when I think Barnwell summed it up longer than I would have, because I was just, why are we saying any of this? But we know why, because Woody's crazy. The owner, I guess he wanted to say a statement like. Yeah. I don't know what you're saying thank you for. I mean, at times it was some competent quarterback play, especially in the back half of the season, but it was just too little too late, and you still found hilarious ways to lose these games. So, whatever. See ya.
Right.
Bye.
I know that it was kind of especially by the end, and doing the interviews and just coded messages and stuff. And I that became a stank with the last couple of days with, it was the McAfee thing, which is just like, all right, this is just a first part of something that's going to come, which ended up being that they parted ways.
Yeah.
It felt for me, and I've gone to this 100 times, but I just always want to come back, was that Rodgers wanted things his way. And I'm not just meaning the roster construction. I'm just talking about the offensive flow and the offensive system. That's why he hired Nathaniel Hackett, because of terminology and because he's okay with Rodgers kind of getting his way a little bit. It just came to a forefront with all the protection stuff. And I know I've talked about this 100 times, but that just was striking to me. That Rodgers was like, no, we don't have to do this protection-wise. We can beat it with my arm and my smarts, which was true 5 years ago, or even 3 years ago. I would say 4 years ago. Times change. Things get fast. Things get quick. And those were the microcosm of what was going on. He wanted to do things his way, and the NFL has moved on. And that's just kind of how it felt. And right now, I'm struggling to come up with a team that makes sense for him. We're going to talk about some quarterback spots, but the open seats to me are the Titans, Browns, Giants, Jets, Raiders, Steelers in some way, shape, or form. And then he's 41 when the season would begin. And he came off a season where he's bottom 10 at every metric, of the metrics that count, I should say, not just total passing yards. But it's just, to me, it's a little messy with even him finding a landing spot, especially when you're considering the personality of Aaron Rodgers. And we just talked about how he had a whole franchise of, I want to do this, I want to do this. You think he's going to come and compete against somebody? You think he's going to be a 1-year stopgap starter to nurture a young guy? Easier said than done. It's just that he has not proven to kind of be that type of quarterback at this stage in his career. So even finding a landing spot for me, I'm kind of like,
It's impossible. Because at this point, you laid out this perfectly. But if Aaron's still going to do the thing where I'm coming to your franchise and I'm going to rate whatever prospects we have of adding coaches or receiver talent or offensive linemen, I'm going to rate by friendship score who I want to join the team, right? Which is exactly
number one metric.
Yeah, friendship score, which is how you end up with Nate Hackett and 47-year-old Randall Cobb and Allen Lazard, who can't catch a thing or get open anymore. Who's going to give Aaron that power? You'd be crazy to do that at this point. So if you're not, if you know, he's been so accustomed to this over the past couple of years that if you don't give him his power, he's going to cause some problems for you. And at this point, it's it's just not worth the trouble. He's not good enough anymore.
Yeah.
So I would just suggest, Aaron, go on. You've already accustomed to podcast mics. Go ahead, set yourself up with an in-home studio and keep it moving that way.
And honestly, I would love for him to do media stuff in the sense, because when he talks ball, he's awesome at it. Like, he's so good at breaking down stuff he likes and why this, and this. He broke down Todd Bowles' defense once, and I was just like, oh, this is great. But he doesn't want to just talk ball because he wants to be known as more than just a football player. So that's like what you got to be like, but you're really good at the football stuff. So focus on that. Just talk about that. But he has to, wander and do his thing. So I wish he would just focus on his football. But remember, he talked about when McCarthy went to the Cowboys, he started watching more Cowboys film because this one he was hurt, I think. And he was talking about, I'm really learning to appreciate Dak Prescott. And one, I was like, thank you. But two, I was like, but how he talked about why he was impressed by Dak Prescott. I was like, this is good. Like, talk more like this, Aaron. Like, this is so much better. So not to talk about a guy that's going to go to the Hall of Fame. And I consider one of the greatest players I've ever seen. I really will. But it's just kind of like, all right, maybe this is the next step for you. But I mean, the only team I even brought up was the Browns if they decide not to go down the young quarterback path. But it's like, haven't the Browns been through enough? That's kind of what I came to. But again, it's a bunch of Band-Aids for bullet holes for him and for whatever team that you might end up with. Leads us to our next veteran quarterback rumor. That is Matthew Stafford has been kind of in the news as a potential trade candidate. And Albert Breer did a good job. When his latest article was breaking down kind of like 10 offseason storylines, rumor stuff. And he talked about the Stafford situation. And he noted that the future guarantees for Stafford got moved up. So basically he becomes extremely movable right now. There's no more future guarantees tied to Stafford. And really the big hang up with the Rams and Stafford or a potential trade suitor is how much they're willing to commit to Stafford, obviously, because the Rams just want him to play one more year. And say, hey, take a 1-year deal, basically, and then we'll move on. No extension. And Stafford is deciding if that's reasonable or not. And then whatever team potential suitor would probably have to understand the same thing. Are we extending him? How much do we give up? Is there any team that makes sense for it? I noted the Steelers, Giants, Vikings, and the Raiders as potential teams. But for you, when you hear this, how real do you feel this move might be, Charles? A team that maybe stood out? And then also we'll talk about like maybe what a compensation could look like for a 37-year-old Matthew Stafford.
Well, I think it's real. And I think with the Rams, anything that even sounds a little weird is probably real because they're a little weird over there.
Yeah, they are a little weird. good and bad. Right. Weird doesn't always mean bad, but
yeah. It's I guess the whole thing for me on this is what are you getting back? Because there's a whole lot of, you go listen to one of the greatest rap songs ever made, International Players Anthem, and reconsider, read some literature on the subjects, because if we're gonna do this, they've talked about Stafford for Darnold potentially. That's one where I would say think twice about this because look, Darnold had a great year. The idea that it's replicable, I don't know because there's been a lot of downs. The way that the season ended, I think when you go back to the Rams playoff game, not all that was his fault. It looked sloppy. It was bad. Some of it was his fault. A lot of it was his fault, but maybe not all of it was. It wasn't
his fault, and then it turned into his fault because he was the fault result, not the fault process. Maybe it's a good way to put it.
But that Lions game in Week 18, no, that was that was a bad one. So there's obviously a lot of buyers beware with this, but you're also kind of at that point with Stafford too. I mean, he's going to be 37 next season. I still think he's pretty good. Personally, I still think in the right circumstances, he's still good enough to lead a Super Bowl run. They're not there yet, but you're also at the point where this could fall off at any second. You're at the point where he could walk into next season instead of an A arm, he's got a B arm. And then what does that look like for your offense?
Right.
So I understand why they would be considering trading him, but would you rather? I guess this is kind of like a question for Sean McVay and Les Snead themselves. Would you rather trade Stafford away and get another vet back like Sam Darnold and then pay Sam Darnold and you're dealing with that risk of Sam Darnold for, let's say, 2 seasons or 1 season? Or Do you trade Stafford? You trade Cup? You say we got Puka, we got some offensive linemen. We're gonna suck this year, and we're gonna see where that takes us. Both are tough roads to take.
Right.
Like I would be more inclined to just say, let's run it back one more time. Let's trade Cup, see what we can get back, spam some more picks, see where we're at in August, and then we'll reassess this next year when you can get even more savings on the Stafford contract. So I don't know. I guess it's the long cop-out answer to say this is a really, really tough situation to find yourself in.
It is, because I like Darnold for some teams and not others, which makes total sense because that's the type of quarterback he is right now. What fell apart for the Vikings more than anything else was the offensive line last year, right. Which is just like one of those things is like I kept saying, and I was just like, is this ever going to come true? Because they keep winning games and like he keeps performing, so maybe it doesn't matter. And then it all fell apart the last couple of games. It's like, there it is. It always comes. It's like the Chiefs. Oh, is this going to hurt them? Well, it hasn't hurt them so far. Shoot. Oh, goodbye. There it is. That's what it looks like. Yeah. It all comes, when it rains, it pours. So that's where, even if I were signing Darnold or Stafford, because of just how pressure affects them, it's like, even if I were one of those teams, I would make sure my line is good as opposed to the receivers. And to me, it's like the Steelers. That's the one line I see of this group of quarterback needy teams. Maybe the Titans, but I won't talk about them in a sec. But the Steelers are that team that makes sense to me as far as that actually making sense for Darnold and or Stafford because of the line and because that will maybe mitigate some of their woes at this point in time. Either guy, really. But that's, again, this is hard because you're going, hey, Matt, like, let's make that one last push. And Stafford goes, well, I want to be paid for 2 years, though, or 3 years and be good and then retire. And then I want to be like, well, remember when you signed the most expensive contracts back-to-back times? Like, are we good there? That would be my negotiation back. But all players want their worth, and I get that, and they want to max it out. So that's the human element of this, is how you convince them, like, hey, let's just push for 1 year, and we reassess it in a year. And he just goes, no. And then it's like, okay, how desperate we get. So I think this is happening. There's been so much smoke with this. And the fact that the money makes sense as far as like it wouldn't hurt the Rams to do this, and the age, how young the team is right now too. That defense is super young, has talent, and actually is closer to being like legit than further away from it. If they just get like a couple of young DBs, man, it could be a really scary defense. And then on offense, like you said, they got some pieces. Offensive line, maybe a couple more guys they need, maybe another running mate for Puka, but like that's a good system for whatever quarterback's in there as far as how the ecosystem of it all. So it's complicated. I think the team that the Steelers one made sense in my brain, and maybe that's just the football one of going like, that's what I want to see. But then the Steelers are going, we might be good with Fields. So I'm with you. Yeah. Long, complicated way of saying, I don't know. Yeah. But the one that was the interesting one we both hinted at was maybe a Sam Darnold swap, which would make sense as far as scheme wise, maybe timeline wise as 2. Stafford goes there for 1 year, and then they move on to McCarthy for the Vikings. But again, what if Stafford goes, I want more than 1 year? Again, that turns into and then that turns into compensation. Well, he doesn't want an extension, so we're only giving you a 4th or a 3rd or yada, yada. What compensation do you actually think he would get? I feel like it's a day 2 somewhere.
Day 2, like a conditional round 3 pick, maybe a conditional round 4 pick.
With playing time? Yeah, that's a good one. I know. I think it's like 2 day 2s in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. I mean, if you're Stafford, based on the season, if I'm Matthew Stafford, based on the season I just had, why would I think that I'm be done playing anytime soon? You know?
Same. Because he was the team for about a month and a half.
Right.
Until everyone got healthy.
He can still be a guy that can carry the weight on his shoulders, just like on the physical traits. But 37.
37 is tough, man. And he's not a good mover, anymore. He gets it done, but he's turning slowly into a artillery that just sits there.
To give an answer, I would run it back for 1 more year. Trade Cup.
Yeah.
Run it back for 1 more year, and then we'll reassess. I don't think I could sell myself on the risk of trading for Sam Darnold. Although those guys do have some pretty strong draft security, so they might even be able to survive it even if he sells. That's
also a big point, though, too. It was like the Rams can do this stuff because Snead and McVay are untouchable, essentially, for a while. As long as they want the jobs, they're going to have it, it seems to me. But let's get to the guy that we potentially had that swap with, Sam Darnold. Any kind of like Sam Darnold fan fiction you have in your head? That's really my question, because I've been really marinating on this. What like would be best for Darnold? I know his agent's probably just going like, cha-ching. But any thoughts on Sam Darnold, his potential landing spots, or even kind of how the Vikings kind of what they do with Darnold next month or two or year? Yeah.
See ya.
I think it's it.
We had a good run. We had a fun season.
Yep. It was fun.
I don't
summer
know
fling.
what's going on with Jason. Yeah, but I don't know what's going on with JJ McCarthy and his knee and all that. But can we really do this again? Like, are we gonna take that dice roll again? Like you're, and it's like you're just standing on such flimsy ground, which sounds crazy to say for a team that just spent top 11, 12 pick on a quarterback last year.
Mm-hmm.
McCarthy was the 10th or 11th pick. I don't know, man. I know I would be trying to trade Sam, but I don't know what's going on with JJ McCarthy's health. I just don't think you could do Sam Darnold again. Especially, dude, if there are teams that want Sam Darnold, you might never get this opportunity again to get picks for him.
Right.
You know, because you can
stock's
easily,
never been higher.
It's never going to be higher because it's hard to find an ecosystem as good as what the Vikings have to offer, even as the offensive line dissipated throughout the season with injuries. Mm-hmm. You got Kevin O'Connell. You got the best wide receiver in football. You've got maybe the best number 2 wide receiver in football, or up there, like in that echelon of guys you would love to have as your number 2. Not like you go to the Steelers, right? You got George Pickens. Okay. Like that just sounds like you got an offensive line. We don't know if we can run the ball though. It just sounds like a recipe for disaster. Like
as much as we like Arthur Smith, it's like, who would I rather have dialing up pass plays, Kevin O'Connell or Arthur Smith?
Right.
KOC. I like Arthur Smith in the run game and everything, but I'd much rather have O'Connell dialing up my red zone plays and getting these guys wide open too. To be honest.
George Pickens is not Justin Jefferson.
Right.
Whoever is the number 2, I don't even
insert number 2 here.
Yeah, I honestly don't remember who the Steelers wide receiver 2 is.
They have Roman Wilson who got hurt, but he's like a number 3 anyways. He's a slot only number 3 type, and they got some decent tight ends, but they're all role playing tight ends too, as far as like their usage and everything. Yeah, they don't have a number 2, and even Pickens is like a low end 1. I mean, to be honest, compared to like what a real number 1 is.
Yeah, so I don't know. This whole Sam Darnold thing seems way too risky on every angle. It's so risky that the Vikings have to strike while the iron's hot. But man, like, dude, if you're the Steelers, could you see yourself trading like a low first round pick, a high second round pick for Sam Darnold?
I'd rather they go with Fields, man.
Yeah, that's where I get
stuck.
And
just see the Fields experiment all the way through, which they should have done this year, which probably would have helped midterm and long term for him, just to know. That's why when they switched to Russell, I understand the politics of it all, but I was so confused because it was like, hey man, like you only gave him half a season. He's starting to get better. He's not great. I think we all know what Fields is at this point in time, but it's like, at least figure him out for you guys. And then like, see what a whole season, see how he responds after a bye week, see once the offensive line's fully healthy, yada, yada, yada. So that the Steelers one is interesting. I think they do go down the Fields path. I mean, that's just the early indicators. But the Darnold thing too, like what you're talking about, you got to sell high, buy low, sell high. That's just stock trading 101. That's just anything. It's easier said than done. His stock, this is the highest the stock has been since he's left USC. I mean, like, so.
No, seriously. Yeah.
Yeah. They're going to tag him, I think, no matter what. Uh-huh. And then I think they move him. And I think the McCarthy contract stuff helps them out too. Yeah. For other things they want to do. They don't have a lot of draft picks coming through. That's another big thing. So it's not like they're getting a lot of cheap, cost-controlled contracts under wraps. So that's why there's a lean to go to that rookie quarterback contract. They only have a first, they're 24th. They have a third-round comp pick, which is 97 overall, and then they have 2 fifth-round picks. That's it. So that's why I think they go young quarterback and try to get those picks for Darnold to kind of, okay, this is how we build up the war chest again and get some more cheap contracts.
Well, how much if you were running a team, how much would you trade for Darnold? Assuming they tag.
It'd be a singular day 2 pick. That's it. But I know that's not how markets work. So it's, but that's where I would start. I'll go, here's my third, and then see what they say. They'd probably ask for a first, and then it's a question. Do we give up a second? Are we going to second and change? And then you have to pay them. It's a lot. Yeah. Having said that, I have created some fan fiction in my head about the Titans trading for him. It's that's just one in my head that I like because we'll talk about maybe the Titans' first pick in a sec, but I don't know. There's some path there that makes sense in my head. But like so Titans have $50 million cap space, they're 10th. Browns are $27 million over the cap, so that's not happening. Giants $47 million, 12th. Okay. Jets $15 million, 21st. That'll never happen just because of optics. Raiders $95 million. They have second in cap space. That's actually a little more interesting. And the Steelers are 14th. They have $43 million. And then I have Rams in there. They're 15th with $40 million. So they could feasibly handle that contract as well. So these two dominoes are intertwined, meaning Stafford and Darnold, and it's just I'm very curious to see where it goes.
Yeah, I do feel steadfast in my belief. If I'm the Rams, I ain't trading Stafford for Sam Darnold. That I don't think I could. I don't think I could do that. If you're
the bridge too far,
dude, it's a bridge too far. We're there's a chance that's a very serious downgrade, and we're out of the playoffs. Because I've maybe it's just I spent too much time around Sam for 2 years,
right,
in New York, and I understand, I get it. Like we saw this year, like the highs with him are really good, but
yes.
the lows can get anyone fired, anyone. Maybe not Sean McVay, maybe that's why you take the risk, but dude, Sean McVay almost quit a couple years ago. Sam Darnold would be he almost quit after they won a damn Super Bowl. Okay,
right,
like.
Did a media tour about how close he was to quitting.
He ain't making
the entire media tour.
Right. He ain't making it through 2 years of Sam Darnold. All right. I can tell you that right now. All right. As someone who's done it, Sean, you are.
That's true.
It. Yeah.
Look at him with Goff by the end of the Goff tenure. And Goff is a safer quarterback than Darnold. Darnold is so high with Goff. Like, yeah, Goff is so steady Eddie, and that can make you frustrated with him. Like, hey, push it like a little bit. Darnold is so high and low. Yeah, McVay might have a heart attack after 6 weeks with that. So good call.
Dude, if they trade for Darnold, we're going to see Sean taking Brady's spot in like 2 years.
That's a pretty safe call. We should have that in the bold predictions pod. Sure. That's a pretty good one. Yeah, who's at Fox earlier? Brady or McVay? Who's at Fox in 2027? Yeah, Brady or McVay. Yeah, I like that one.
NFL in 2037, Sean McVay or Tom McVay?
Tom McBrady.
Next.
Yeah, moving on. It's your Irish cousin. All right, now to another. This was a Friday news dump that happened. This is a Super Bowl Sunday news dump that happened, which is probably the football's version of July 4th weekend for politics. Hey, we're just going to drop this one right here. No one's paying attention. Deebo Samuel seems to be on the trade market, which I feel is a little bit of a long time coming. Deebo's been, first off, the 49ers invested in Juwan Jennings on a contract there. They drafted Ricky Pearsall in the first round. Brandon Ayuk we're trading them to a big extension. So that's a lot of investment into 3 younger receivers whose roles actually make a lot of sense. But the Deebo thing, I really just want the question I get. I think they move on from him. I think the writing's on the wall. I think also when a receiver is trying to fight a kicker and a long snapper in the middle of a game, that's pretty hard to come back from. But any teams make sense to you for Deebo? Like, this is really more interesting than, is he leaving the 49ers? It's like, what is his best landing spot? Because maybe it's just lack of an imagination from me, which is such a creative player. But it's like, well, Kyle Shanahan was perfect for him. So maybe the landing spot that came to head for Deebo, and kind of your thoughts on this, Chuck?
The one that makes the most sense to me is Pittsburgh. Because like if you're gonna try to keep similar-ish offenses, that makes sense. And like we just talked before,
that's a great answer.
Who the hell is Steelers wide receiver 2? Roman Wilson, who was a 3rd round pick, who should be like wide receiver 3. Even whatever state you think Deebo Samuel is in right now, that would be a massive upgrade for that offense. Yes. I can't imagine that it would cost too much to trade for him unless there starts to be like a really serious bidding war. But to me, that is like an A+ marriage between need and player, because he doesn't have to go and be the, potentially any outside reps, because I don't know.
Doesn't have to be outside. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And they need a slot receiver. They need someone who can go in and honestly be a little more consistent than George is sometimes in terms of, approaching the game. So I think that makes a lot of sense.
No, I really like that one. I didn't even think about that because even Arthur Smith actually would use him really well. I mean, shoot, Cordero Patterson, he tried. he loves Cordero. And so like, okay, let's get a guy that is like Cordero when he was younger, a guy that can run, receive, and all that. So yeah, no, I like that. And they need explosive plays. That was the big thing that really hurt this offense this year was they couldn't get explosives outside of go ball George Pickens. So even if he's not a vertical guy, at least he got a yak guy. Yeah, I really like that one. I didn't have that. Didn't have that in my thoughts. I said Commanders because it was just, all right, Cliff Kingsbury, they have the room to do it. Yeah, Cliff Kingsbury likes his rusher receiver types, get a little creative. Same thing where they have Terry. Terry's an outside guy, can do some power slot stuff, but outside, so you don't need that X. You already have your X. Now you get the move around guy. So that was the other one that came to mind. Then Dolphins was just kind of like, because I was just like squint. They do something with Tyreek. Offensive system makes a lot of sense. And the last one I threw in there, Jags.
Ooh, that'd be fun.
Right?
Yeah.
Same thing. Same line of thinking, though, that we have. Brian Thomas Jr. is your outside guy. Need a little more juice from the auxiliary guys. I think they're going to try and find a new running back. So, all right, you can get some running back touches there. Okay, so I know it was. That's why I wanted to throw that out to you because Deebo's such a unique player. He's not a receiver. He's just Deebo. I mean, people were getting lazy and say it's the Deebo role. It's the Percy Harvin role. It's the, like we've seen a version of this like every 5 years. So it's just a unique player that I think has to go into the right spot to get the most out of him. So that's why it's fun kind of talking about his best landing spots. All right. We're going to take our first break and then we're going to come back with Kellen Moore to the Saints and some other news from this week. All right. We are back. Kellen Moore has finally been announced as the new New Orleans Saints head coach after the Eagles won the Super Bowl. That's why they said they had to wait. Even Mickey Loomis said, yeah, the Eagles just kept winning. That's why it took so long, which started to make sense as the kind of time went along. Yeah, Kellen Moore, offensive coordinator, Eagles, offensive coordinator, Chargers before that, offensive play caller, and offensive coordinator for the Cowboys before that, Scott Linehan disciple, quarterback in my same class in high school. He went to Boise State. We did one camp together back in the day. He was a baller. Everyone loves Kellen Moore. He is the Titus Howard whisperer. Was that that receiver from who's the Lions receiver? Titus Young.
Oh, Titus Young.
Titus Young whisperer. Kellen Moore. He was the one guy to get through to him. We had a Titus Young conversation last week.
We were just talking about the guy last week.
We were. And from what I heard is that Kellen was the only one that could kind of keep him on the straight and narrow. And yeah, things happen. But what do you think of this? Saints are such a messy situation. Even Derek Carr is the quarterback right now. Spencer Rattler also got some time last year when Carr was injured. Same with Jake Haener. But a reporter asked Kellen Moore, do you view it as if you have a decision to make a quarterback, or is Derek Carr the quarterback? And Kellen Moore kind of gave I view it as Derek Carr is a tremendous starting quarterback in the league. We're fortunate to have him. We're excited to go through this process as we build the roster. I don't know. Kind of like, I don't know how to feel about that. I see the words, but it doesn't sound like that as I say it out loud. But what do you think about Kellen Moore to the Saints, Charles, and maybe just what this could be? Maybe not even this year, but even the future years.
Good luck. And I don't really think it has anything to do with Kellen himself.
Right.
But like this, they're just screwed, like in terms of salary cap. You go on Spotrac.com, they're dead last in cap space for
51 mil.
Yeah, 51 million over. You start running through some of their contracts, you realize the only thing they can do kind of again is to restructure, keep kicking this money down the road until all these contract expires. They would be in a lot better spot if they never signed Derek Carr in the first place. Which we all knew. Right, which we all knew. And the thing with Kellen, I think what Kellen's saying is obviously in the perfect world, Derek Carr's not on this team.
Right.
But I would say in a vacuum where they're not in perpetual cap hell, this is a very movable contract for this offseason.
Mm-hmm.
You're only dealing with I think it'd be split around like 22 million dead cap next year, 26 next year, which is not really a huge deal for a quarterback. But when you're already 50 over, and you already have,
it's a drop in the debt bucket.
Right, a drop in the debt bucket. But you're right. You got basically a $32 million cap hit from Marshawn Lattimore, a $9.2 million cap hit from Michael Thomas, 7.4.
Say it again. How much is Michael Thomas dead cap hit?
$9.2 million. So just
They're still paying him.
between Marshawn Lattimore and Michael Thomas, you have $40 million in dead cap that you can't touch this year. Oh, and then Jameis he has another $7.4 million in dead cap. So between those three players,
absurd.
$47 million in dead cap. And you're already 51 over. Like you can't really cut him. So shoot, maybe you trade him, you designate you do a post like June 1st trade for Derek Carr to see like where you are cap wise at that point. But I understand why Kellen took this job, right? It's NFL coach.
1 of 32.
1 of 32. You know, I think one of the dumbest things I think people say is, why the hell would anyone take this job? Because it's 132. Obviously, someone's going to take it.
And I think they give them time too.
You have to.
I think they do. So that's why you take it too. Like you don't have to worry about it's truly a 3-4 year deal, like as opposed to like one and then
So as a whole, they have for all their players for dead cap, they have $48.4 million in dead cap. They have minus $51 million in cap space. So like for people who aren't familiar with the cap, dead cap, can't move it. Cap space, if you're trying to get under it, you have to work around a $48.4 million block that's just sitting there. So when people start to say, "Oh, you can manipulate the cap, you can get under the cap," sure, yeah, I can get under the cap, but what's it look like? I'm going to have a bunch of UDFAs and veteran free agents that no one wants to sign as our roster deteriorates over the year. Player quality has to matter at some point, and they're not quite there. It's only going to get worse. Brandon Staley's projected defensive coordinator. I don't really understand that one. So we'll see. I do think this is like, as far as Kellen and his ability to be a head coach, I don't really doubt that he would be like at least fine. But this situation is so bad that it's going to take a long time to get to fine. Like, where do you even start in the draft this year? I wouldn't really bother drafting a quarterback just yet. Like, let's just trade down, get some more. You need to trade down. You need to get some more viable players on cheap contracts through the draft, and then try again next year, because that's all you really have to do.
They have an old roster. It's the 5th oldest roster in the NFL, too. So you're paying all that money for old players, and a lot of them aren't even tangible anymore. I'm glad you brought the dead cap stuff, because like even Cameron Jordan, who's a legend, don't get me wrong, but his best years are definitely behind him. He has a void, which is how teams extend or spread out the contract hits, for almost $15 million in 2026.
That's crazy, man. Like,
after he's going to be long and gone, $15 million in just voided deals. DeMario Davis, $8.7 million in 2026 of void hits. Tyrann Mathieu, $7.2 million in void hits in 2026. So that's the thing, is even if they move on from these old guys, DeMario Davis is still a tangible player, which is incredible at his age. But still, in 2026, that's 2 years from now, they're still just those three players. It's almost $30 million in just contracts you already gave that you had to spread out. So dead cap, void hits, all that stuff, and then now we got, and we don't. It's not like we have a bunch of picks that we're working with because we're tanking. No, this team's kept trying to push it. So just a mess. Everyone knows the Saints are a mess. I want to see Kellen as a head coach. I feel like he's one of those guys that actually might be decent as a head coach. As far as his personality is very organized. Everyone that's been around him likes him. Everyone knows that his dad was a coach, I believe, too. But it's just one of these guys that's just a football junkie. Not the fieriest personality, which is fine. It's just be you. Like, I know that's corny, but honestly, be you as a head coach. And I think Kellen's always been comfortable in his own skin.
That's the thing, man. Football players, they'll pick out the real quick,
so quick.
If what you're telling me ain't genuine, and you don't have to be the toughest, roughest person in the world. I still tell everyone the best defensive line coach I ever had was in the damn wheelchair, but he just got it. Like, he just understood.
It's coaching.
How to teach, how to coach, and he was very relatable, very cool. But man, if you give off the scent of this isn't actually who I am, bro, I'm not listening to you. I'm not listening.
Well, not even just the raw stuff, or just having confidence in what you're saying. How about the quote from the Chiefs coach that we were in that group chat we were just talking about?
Oh yeah,
Chiefs passing game coordinator was basically saying, "I'm scared to coach Patrick Mahomes." Just say, "I'm scared to mess him up." And it's just like, you can't do that. No. Even if you think that way, don't say it. But like, it's not how coaching an NFL player is so much of how many tools you give them. And they don't have to use the tools all the time. You'd hope they do. But these guys got to the freaking NFL like for a reason. And so sometimes it's getting out of the way, but some of the magic, not the magic, but the science of it is when you do step in, when you do give him stuff to work with, and when you hands off. It's just that balance with it all. And it's so funny when I see these coaches, usually guys that have Patriots in their resume, all of a sudden just go to a new spot and just, you don't love football, all this stuff. And it's like, do you? Right. Do you love football, or you just heard another coach say that? And so you're like, oh, that sounds good. And now I'm going to say it now too, because I don't know. There's a lot of that personality stuff. So I don't know. I want to see him just because the other merits with Kellen Moore. Shoot, just look what he did with Jalen Hurts. I thought he streamlined a lot of things for Jalen Hurts this year. So he was a steady hand at the wheel. Oh, sorry. Just real quick. Assistant coaches too. He hired Brandon Nugent as offensive line coach. And then someone, they're like, oh, he's returning to New Orleans as offensive line coach. I was like, man, I don't remember him as the O-line coach there. It was 1 year. He was assistant O-line coach before that. And I think that he had other guys above him that had offensive line resume, but he was a Chargers offensive line coach in 2022 and 2023. And then he was the Seahawks assistant O-line coach last year. So that's that's not exactly the recent resume I want my offensive line coach to be, those working with those offensive lines that have kind of fallen apart and everything. But I just had to mention that because that was the one assistant that I saw that he did bring back. And I like just talking to line coaches. But we're moving on to the Titans. Kind of hinted at this. Any thoughts or fan fiction, as I like to put it, with them and the number one pick, Charles? I already mentioned that I want them kind of to go down the Darnold path maybe, but what are some of your thoughts about the Titans and what they could do with that number one pick?
I think I would start off here. Whether or not you get Darnold, I don't think that should really influence what you do here. Because I don't think this is a year where if you really feel good about Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders first overall, then pull the trigger. But there's no need. Just take him. There's no need to force it though. We've seen teams like when the Browns, when they picked Myles Garrett first overall, I don't think they regret that.
Right?
It's not necessarily the worst thing in the world.
He might,
happen. Right? But... Yeah, he very well might regret it. But I don't think there's any shame. Like because I think in one of our mock drafts, you put Travis Hunter number one to the Titans. I don't think that there's any shame in doing something like that. If you think he's the best player in the draft. And you went 3-14, and quite honestly, the back half of the season, you weren't even really that competitive. This is a long process, and I almost think the worst thing they could do is just force a quarterback pick they don't really believe in right here. Yep. So, I think the best case scenario, you get someone to trade up for number one without having to move back too far, where you can still get premium talent that you need. But if not, then just go number one. Just go best player available on your board. I don't think there's a position that they don't necessarily need up front, or not up front, just like anywhere.
Anywhere.
Yeah, when you lose
maybe D tackle. That's maybe about it.
Right. So maybe you don't take Mason Graham number one overall. But
okay.
Every other player should be like in
viable.
Viable option for you to take. It's kind of a tough spot to be in for Titans fans, I would imagine, because let's say. I don't know. For this is scenario's sake, let's say they take like Will Campbell first overall. Titans fans, they might not be too happy about that, but if he's the best player on your board, or whoever that is, Will Johnson, right. Travis Hunter, Will Campbell, if you want to trade down, that's what you should do. Don't force the quarterback pick though, because they're not in a spot where they can do that. They got a ways to go.
How I kind of summed up my head is they have to love who they're taking. Yeah. Don't just like a guy, love him. So if it's a quarterback and you love Cam Ward, okay, we'll go with it. If you guys just like Cam Ward and, we want to maybe get Levis another shot, and you're kind of having, is there any hesitation with it? All right, well then don't. But if you're like, no, Ward is clearly better, we do this, and this, just take him. Don't even think twice about it. I just think it's fascinating because it's not that bona fide, there's Caleb or Drake May or Jane Daniels at the top of this draft, or there's this, and this. Like this, it reminds me of the last time they had the number one pick and they traded back. And that was the Goff Wentz class. That was who 2016. Larry Tunsil gas mask draft. Yeah. But that draft class.
That was 2016. Mahomes
16.
2017.
Yep. 16. Yeah. And that's right when I got to the Raiders. Yeah. So 16. But that was also because the Raiders, we were going to take Tunsil if he kept falling. So we were all like, holy crap. Like,
more
oh my
weed,
God. Like,
more weed.
Yeah. Send another video out. What's his, because it was like his father-in-law or something like that. It's like, yeah, pump it out, put out another video. But that draft class too was also a like, oh, do we like these quarterbacks? Do we love them? Tunsil was kind of player one in that class, and then he dropped, obviously. But that's what it reminds me of, at least for this class too. But I've been trying to just figure it out because it's like, all right, take best player available. Hope Levis works out. Take best player available and enter the Darnold sweepstakes. Take a QB. And it seems like to me, just kind of rumors, Cam Moore seems kind of be the guy they favor if they're looking at the QBs right now. Trade number one pick, take best player available. Sign Darnold, trade number one pick, take best player available. And it's one of these where it's like all of those options are viable. All of those are realistic. And I understand any argument that you want to make with them because it's not like I'm committed to any of these quarterbacks anyways, where I'm like, what? Really? You want to upgrade or you want to not take him? So, and then add another pass rusher if that makes sense. Abdul Carter, if he's there, Michael Williams, Mike Green from Marshall, Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M, one of those guys. Or hope Travis Hunter, if you move back, take Travis Hunter and create a really fun DB room and sell some tickets because I know they're trying to build a new stadium anyway. So that I just think it's interesting where they're at, especially with the quarterback. And I think they still like Levis. That's what I want to say too. Is like they're not totally out on him, even if it was the most wild ride of a quarterback season I have seen in a long time.
Dude. I mean, it started off like kind of okay. Yeah, even with the horrible beam interceptions, it did kind of start off kind of okay. Two
different times last season, I started going like, "Hey, Levis is doing some things," and literally the next week he had a blow up game, like in a bad way, a bad blow up game, and it's just one of those where it's like, I need to just shut up.
Too much muscle milk.
Need some more yoga.
Yeah, dude.
Need some more Pilates.
Drop the skill player sleeves, man. Go get you some real quarterback sleeves. You know, you're not a damn
skill player sleeves.
Yeah, like where they're all tucked in. You know, go back.
I thought you were talking about his tats.
No.
Okay, yeah.
Go get you some Peyton Manning sleeves. You know.
Yeah. The loose ones. Yeah, the Sam Bradfords.
Yeah.
He had the loose ones.
You're not a linebacker.
Yeah, right. Darnold wears those too. So, there maybe that's what they want to. Yeah, more loose sleeves, less tight sleeves for my quarterbacks. Yeah, there's a quarterback in this class that I kind of have that feeling about. He has a little too many accessories for a quarterback. Yeah, he was at the Senior Bowl.
Oh, okay. I know what you're talking about.
He's got a lot of late hype right now.
Yeah.
Dart's got a lot of accessories. He's got the one stripe. He's got a hoodie. He's got a headband. You get one or two. Quarterback, you don't get all of them. You can't create a player and say yes to every accessory when you're creating that player.
The hoodie. God, this guy stop. Such
a bad. That's a weird look for me because
in game, I think it's terrible.
Practice whatever. You practice how you practice, like whatever. I've worn a sweatshirt on a practice sometimes, but no game hoodie has been one of those trends I've never gone behind because that all started with what's his face from the Packers.
Donald Trump, James Jones.
He was the first guy I remember that did the hoodie thing. But another copycat league in more ways than one. All right, we'll move on to, and we're sticking with the AFC. We'll go to the Bengals. Jermaine Pratt is the latest Bengals player to request a trade. First off, what are your thoughts on that with Jermaine Pratt requesting a trade, Charles?
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. but
like that,
not really the season I would be like pounding the table that I demand a trade here.
You know, like a couple years ago when they lost some playoff game, he was going off about how like they just ruined like his last game, I think at the end of his first contract. And I was like, okay, I mean, I don't know how many guys in the locker room are thinking about you in this moment where you've lost this playoff game, but
you don't see pictures of Burrow, Higgins, Jamar Chase, and then there's Pratt.
Right.
The Ringo Starr of the Bengals.
I mean, if I needed a starting quarterback or starting linebacker on the cheap, I can't imagine teams would trade anything more than like a 5th round pick for him, though. So I don't really know what he's trying to accomplish here. Jermaine, you could go and play for a team that does not have Joe Burrow and T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, and actually lose games. I don't really understand what this is about here, but it's Jermaine Pratt, so this is America, man. You have First Amendment rights. If you want to go demand a trade, go for it. I just don't really see why.
He's not infringing on anybody else's rights. He's okay.
Yeah, go for it, dude.
Oh man. What also leads us to
Yeah,
I guess he wants to get paid, but I mean, don't we all?
Yeah.
But I mean, Ernest Jones went for a sixth and a fifth for two in 2 seasons. So it was in the 2024 offseason. Traded those in 2026, 6th-round pick and 5th-round pick. And then he got traded again to the Seahawks in exchange for a linebacker and a 4th. So Jerome Baker. So, I mean, that's where his range is. It's going to be a 5th, 6th-rounder. I mean, that's kind of what these guys go for. And Ernest Jones is not a perfect linebacker either, has some qualities as well. And that's kind of how I describe Pratt. So that's kind of what I'm expecting out of that. If it does move on, I think this just turns into nothing. Yeah, I'm sure the Bengals brass are kind of like, all right, we'll get to you. Well, it's taken us as long as possible to get to all this. We'll get to you down. We got to worry about defense now. That's been kind of their MO for the last few years anyways. But really, what are the Bengals doing? That's kind of just what I want. I don't even know if I'm asking you. This is more just like a shrug of the shoulders. Like, I want to see how they stick this landing because they are the most interesting team this offseason. And this is truly franchise altering moves. We say that sometimes, this is a big move, but like, this is going to dictate their path. This is going to dictate the next Joe Burrow's career. Really. I mean, how they stick Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. So I'm curious what happens over the next month or two and whether they are able to do it.
It just seems like they're kind of vibing for now. I know. I think it's insane they haven't signed Jamar Chase yet. It only gets more expensive by the day. So I truthfully don't understand what they're doing here. Like the fact that he came back, played on that deal, had the season that he had.
Yeah.
Shredded.
Yes.
What are you waiting for?
Literally,
what are you waiting
for? He could easily stared at his defense and gone like, why am I trying? And instead he went, no, I'm getting us to the play. Like, man, that's the guys you pay. the elite player that also plays hard. Yeah. That's who I want to build my franchise around.
Yeah.
It feels pretty easy to me.
Who already has like insane rapport with the franchise quarterback going back to college. Come on now.
Yeah.
Let's figure this out.
Like best friends. Yeah. I know. It seems kind of pretty easy to figure it out. Like T. Higgins, I feel like is going to get squeezed out because I just kind of see the writing on the wall, but it's like that too. Like you could have done this if you nailed it. I don't know, man. These legacy team owners, they cash flow seems to always be an issue. And it's just how there's contract talks with Burrow explaining future guarantees. I was like, this is the point we're at right now where the normal fan is worried about future contracts and stuff. The cash flow. Whew. I mean, if more tumultuous teams create, I guess, these conversations. I guess that's a good thing. I don't know if that's good or not. I don't know if I want fans talking about future contracts and guarantees. But going on to our next one, we got the Jags, because the ban is lifted. And the question is, who will be the Jags GM? They do not have a general manager. The combine's next week. I leave for the combine in 5 days.
No, it's the week after.
The week after. God, sorry. I got 2 weeks. Okay, that's right. I panicked myself and I was like, wait a second. I leave in 4 days. It's in a week and a half. Still, it's coming tight. They've interviewed so far Brandon Brown, who is the Giants assistant GM, Terrence Gray, who's the Bills director of player personnel, Trey Brown, the Bengals senior personnel exec. I actually like Trey Brown. I worked with him in the AAF. He was one guy that actually knew how to write an email, and that was really nice, but he was super organized. And I'm not the only one that sings his praises, but that's, swear to God, because you dealt with some people in that league, and he was so organized and on top of his game. I was like, you should be with the team. How are you here? But it's really cool to see him getting some GM stuff. And I know our friend Justice Mosqueda worked with him in the XFL, but he's a rising star. He's actually one I'm keeping my eyes on no matter where he ends up. James Gladstone, who's the Rams director of scouting strategy, which is a new one for me. Josh Williams from the 49ers. He's the director of scouting and football operations. And then they have requests, I believe, for Ian Cunningham, who's the Bears assistant GM, Mike Greenberg, not from ESPN, Bucks assistant GM, and Chad Alexander, who's the Chargers assistant GM. They can't be normal. They never are.
No.
Charles, thoughts on the Jags GM hiring process as we are here at almost Valentine's Day?
What the hell, dude? That's the thought. What the hell?
The Jags.
I mean, dude, the free agent starts in the month. Like, you don't even have.
We're doing a preview pod next week on free agents, or in a couple of weeks.
And we all know how this works. Like, teams are having conversations with free agents like now, or they're talking to their agents at least now. You don't even have anyone that can do
allegedly.
Allegedly, right? When the clock strikes noon or 4 p.m. whenever the league day opens, and you see that 4:01 p.m. there's a deal signed. Come on now, that didn't occur in 1 minute. All right, so but the point is, you don't even have anyone that can go do that right now, which is nuts. Right. This close to the combine, you're so far behind the 8 ball in terms of like trying to get your team ready for the next season. I don't know. I think Brandon Brown's an interesting name only because in that the Giants Hard Knocks, he was one of the few people in there making sense every time he spoke. A lot of you look at Joe Schoen and Brandon's comment in the corner like, well, actually, maybe no.
Hate to admit it, but perception is the reality sometimes.
Yeah. You go back and watch some of that stuff because I did because I was bored on the plane rides this week. Brandon Brown, one of the few guys that actually made some sense while he was speaking, and maybe if he was running things.
I like this list.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been. It's not a bad list, but let's go. Let's make it higher. Come on, it's time.
Exactly. Yeah. This should have been happening a couple days after Liam Cohen. And that whole process was they fired Balky because they were like, oh shoot, Cohen turned us down because of Balky, which is just half measures. You can't win with half measures.
This is where I get stuck on the Jaguars because I like that list, right? I like on paper the idea of hiring someone like Liam Cohen to run this offense. But you've gone about it in such a Jaguar way possible that it's hard for me to actually get fully excited about what comes after this because there's too much stank here, too much stench. Because
it doesn't feel planned at all. Yeah. It's just making stuff up on the fly, which is not how you run a football team. There's a lot of moving parts and a lot of very important decisions. I mean, so people know GMs, it used to be GMs would move after the draft and personnel guys would move after the draft. So May is when you'd used to see GMs fired, moving on, retiring, yada, yada. And then the movement would happen because the scout season, the personnel season is up through the draft. That is their season. And so now we've got more movement. I would say this never happened before, but more movement now happens with head coaches in January, yada, yada, when new guys get brought in. So that's why this is like completely strange to be hiring someone in February. It's kind of basically you're doing the worst of both worlds because now you're really behind the 8 ball. And a lot of GMs, if a new GM comes in, they don't move their scouts before the draft because that's just too hard. And also a lot of teams are really wary of getting their information out, even though everybody talks and everything, but it's still a thing. And data and all that kind of stuff and grades and big boards. So that's why it's weird. It's whoever they hire in February, the week before the combine or 10 days before the combine, right before free agency. Okay, they have to get to know their staff in a week. They have to go through what's your guys' big board? What's our priorities? They have to know their roster, which I hope these guys do if they're interviewing for this job, but still, it's different in practice. What's their relationship with the freaking head coach? They have to meet with coaches too and go like, hey, we have these 7 guys, free agents we want you to scout. All right, this is the coach's grade. They haven't even started that process. That process started like 2 weeks ago for most teams. Ooh, it's just like, and then even the hires Liam Cohen, it seems like he has good relationships with a lot of people in the league, but everyone's getting blocked. And I know why the Bucs did it because they're saying F us, F you, which get it. That's it. That's how NFL works sometimes. I know a lot of people are mad about assistant coaches leaving, but that's how it works and getting blocked. But it just seems like he's hiring a lot of unproven guys, which can work out great, but they can also turn into the Nathaniel Hackett Broncos very quickly, where all these the guy that was assistant line coach has never run a room. This college guy that's never been a coordinator. This assistant special teams coach has never been a special teams coach. This is assistant linebacker coach that's never been a coordinator. Just a lot of guys that haven't run a room, have been untested. So that's why I'm kind of just going like, all right, guys, you guys, are we doing this again? I'll slam that lid back shut. I will put that band right back on there if you guys keep embarrassing me in this discussion. So yeah, just trying to figure out what they're doing. And I think they're trying to figure out what they're doing too. So we'll see. And the Trevor Lawrence trade rumors I think everyone realized how stupid those were right away. So I felt like I don't even have to mention it, but all right. We're going to get to our last break and then we're going to get back to some mailbag questions from you guys. All right, we are back. It's the off season. Let's get to some of these mailbag questions. And a reminder, send in those questions to football301mailbag at yahoosports.com or leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and those will jump the line. We got a couple good ones today. This one I I was trying to figure out the wording, and I think I understand what they were trying to get at. So this was a review. JBC 614 said, "How hard is the wing T back, or how hard does it come back? And is it coming to the pros, i.e. Jeremiah Smith and Devontae Smith touchdowns in the Natties?" So, a couple things here. Wing T is it's a convoluted question, but I think I get what he was trying to say.
Let me go look up their touchdowns real quick when you talk.
So what the touchdowns were was the fake motion back, the ghost motion, and then they return to beat man coverage. You know, where they fake the end around, they return.
Yes.
So that is a wing T motion. So I get what JBC is trying to say here. That the little back and forth motion. So usually that's a red zone play inside the 10-yard line. Yeah. We saw the Chiefs do a version of that in the Super Bowl against the Eagles the first time. A couple of times they did a version of it, which was just a quick back and forth motion. But a fake end around motion is known as a ghost motion or a fake reverse. So this motion is called a fake ghost return, or a ghost return. I'm sorry, motion, and it's just to beat man coverage in the red zone. And so the guy that's running with the receiver in motion is hauling ass trying to get over the top, and then you just revert, give them the okie doke, and they just return back. So I think that's what he was trying to ask here.
Yeah,
I don't know what your interpretation was.
Well, no, it was kind of a similar. It was going in a similar spot, because I feel like a lot of wing T-ish stuff has kind of become just like designer plays for the NFL. The Lions, when they're in whatever you would designate as like that, let's call it 25 to 35 yard area. Like if you want to call it
the gold zone,
green zone, whatever the hell you want to call it.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of when they get into their funky bag of some of the wing T stuff, or like they'll run. I think it was into Packers when they ran like the receiver trap play to Amon-Ra.
Yep.
And they're like on the 22-yard line, or when they do
that's wing T through and through right there. That is as wing T as it gets.
Or even in the game against Washington when they did I don't know if you would when they did the shovel pass, like
toss shovel.
Right. They're around like the 22, 25-yard line in that circumstance too. So like I think teams like that, they'll use it when we want a shot play, but we're kind of scared of throwing it downfield because the field's getting a little compressed. So you just kind of throw something that teams don't see anymore, which is wing T, which is kind of a good counter, I guess, to the modern stuff that you're expecting.
It is. They don't practice against it.
Right.
They practice against your shotgun 2x2 formation the whole week. Yeah, no, it's teams are they're going old school to get new ideas with emotions. We saw it last year a lot with the Dolphins and their run game. I mean, Kyle Shanahan, what he does with the run game stuff, that's all wing T, old school stuff. Return motions, speed motions. They just have cranked it up to 15, and they have guys that run a 4.22 as opposed to, little
What's
Jimmy who runs a
Smoke cigarettes after the game,
a guy that's going to be in a tank in 4 years, like that's a little different. I will say, though, no, the under center run game, there's been a little renaissance with the run game right now, which is a lot of fun. Not just the running backs, but designs too. Yeah. And, the motions are getting a lot more creative. So I guess there is a lot more wing T stuff. I was now watching some prospect stuff and watching Ohio State, looking at like what Chip Kelly does. He's doing some motion stuff with this. It's what old is new again kind of thing. The spinner series that the Packers got to, kind of wing T, with all the guys motioning with that. That's kind of wing T. So yeah, it's just teams going old school to get new ideas and just, okay, what if we do this in the gun? What if we do this with guys that run really fast? And then I'll say the one thing, this isn't tied to the run game, but I do think we'll see a movement with more under center passes next year and not play action only under center, like truly straight drop back, 3-step, 5-step, 7-step, because defenses are getting way too good. You're under center, you're the running ball or it's play action. Oh, you're in the shotgun, you're passing the ball. And I think now that's a new wrinkle that, again, is old, that teams have gotten away from, but I think reverted back because, defenses are just good against the new stuff. And so that's something I think we see a little bit more of.
Yeah, I kind of think of them as, I fell way into the weeds one day and I was making my new custom playbook for the college football game. I kind of just like wrote it down as like low risk shot plays, So like, we'll do a wing back.
Designers.
Right. Designers.
That's what we call them. Designers. Yep.
Right. Yeah. So good question.
Low risk, high reward.
Yes.
I know. It used to be a thing. Why does everyone run play action every play? It's like, well, you run it seldomly because it's a big designer play. You can't just run it every play. Otherwise, defense are going to go, oh, here it comes again. Like, that's what it is. There's limitations to it all. But no, I like kind of figuring out what the new trend's going to be. But next up from Jake Hora, why don't the Saints blow it up? What would the most extreme scenario for them look like if they started this offseason? If this isn't it, what could realistically be the catalyst to start a rebuild?
Well, I think the first answer, the answer to the first question answers everything. Why don't they blow it up? Because they can't. They just can't. They missed their window to do it. Like if you start looking at the Saints Star Trek page, basically a simple way to start looking at cuts is whose cap hit is higher than their dead cap hit. So that's gonna be like your difference. The Saints cap, like the top of their roster is filled with guys whose dead cap hits are higher than their cap hits for the season. So let's say Cam Jordan is a good example. Like his dead cap is $3 million more than his cap hit for next season. So if you just straight up cut him, you're out $3 million.
There's no savings.
Right. And you're already over 51. So what you have to do is you have to restructure and kick the money down the road. The only way they can get out of this is just by waiting. And not signing any more big contracts to questionable players like Derek Carr, or giving out extensions to players who are a little over the hill. Like there's no real reason for Cam Jordan to still be costing you this much money at this point in his career, but you are here because you can't blow it up. So like you'll see when they over the next month or so before the new league year starts, when they start revving up into space for cap hits and trying to lower their salary number for the year, it's just going to be more restructures, which is going to make it tougher. But at some point, time will run out on these deals and you'll be back. But until then, you're just kind of kicking the can down the road. But you will probably be so bad at some point that you will end up with a top 5 pick. If that's what bottoming out looks like, I guess. Just running out of time.
Just hopefully you're not using it to move up for Trevor Penning and Chris Olave. The salary cap is like a credit card. Yeah, you don't have to worry about it right now, but it's always going to come due. And Visa is always going to get their money. And American Express is always going to get their money. The NFL is always going to get their money. So that's how you have to look at it. It's like, yeah, we can make it cheap and we can get through this month, this year, but might have to pay that in 2, 3, 4 years, which is what they're going through right now. Next question. Quentin Brown. I think I'm just going to leave it at one line here. He said, is Jalen Carter the most important person on the Eagles defense? Charles, as the local Jalen Carter enthusiast on Football 301, what do you think about that question?
Shoot. It's tough because I just kind of look at their defensive line as one thing, not always as a whole, individual piece.
A couple of those guys might be moving on now.
Right. A couple guys might be moving on. I would say moving forward, yeah, he's probably the most important player on their defense up front. Because I still think he's the player that has the highest ceiling on their defense in terms of just turning to like actual Hall of Fame caliber player, which is certainly within the realm of possibility.
Yeah.
Like he's scratching on that now.
He reminds me of Kevin Williams.
Yes, that's a good one.
That's who he reminds me of, which is a Hall of Famer. Or gonna be.
Yeah, I don't really know like if he's the most important player, but I would for this year's team probably is. But moving forward, like definitely is because especially if you're gonna lose Milton Williams to free agency, which is most likely happening, unless they figure out a way, with Jalen Hurts' contract because he's not getting paid all that much in terms of cap hits each season to keep him. Probably gonna lose him. Jordan Davis is, he's still trying to figure it out.
Yeah,
it's not quite there yet, but you're gonna need your dude to be a dude on the interior. And luckily, you have one of the most talented guys probably has ever played defensive tackle. Like in terms of just raw talent, he's got to be up there. You see, it felt like every week he was just getting a little bit better. And I know, I think the second part of this question is, asking why Jalen Carter will just stand at the top of the pocket sometimes. Sometimes it's by design. Sometimes it's just, I'm not going to beat my block on this play, so let's just save it for the next down.
Is it third down?
Because sometimes, hey man, sometimes when you start your pass rush, immediately, I don't got this play. Let's try it again. Let's try it again.
Oh shoot, the center slide towards me. Never mind.
or the guard caught me good on the shoulder pads one time. All right, we're gonna have to readjust and come back to the next play. I think he definitely has a little bit of that in him. But I don't really view him as a guy that takes a whole bunch of plays off.
He played 84% of their snaps last year.
Right.
That's absurd for a defensive tackle. Anything over 80% is absurd.
It's absurd. He's probably the most important player they have on defense moving forward because he has potential to be like one of the 3 or 4 best defensive players in the league.
Right. And so that's kind of how I'm at. And also if Fangio's still there, which I think he will be, that defense needs that guy. They need a D tackle that can go beast mode like that, can take over a game. That kind of, if you don't have it, you turn into the Chargers when Brandon Staley is defensive coordinator. I did love Quentin's last sentence in the question. It was a longer question. I cut it off, but it said, I love that Carter is not only a grizzly bear, but he is so smart. And he is. He's a football savant.
Dude, he is.
He's a football savant. You can tell.
Is.
And like the fake twist he had against the Rams was so impressive because that was the end of the game, the 2 pressures he had at the end of the game. Same situation where that was the combination of how hard he rushes sometimes, how smart he is, and how talented he is. Because not a lot of guys can do what he did, but he's smart enough to know what he had to do. Like, so that's a scary combination.
Yeah, and I think when you're scouting defensive line, like one of the first things I always go to is like just block recognition. Only because we spent so much time on that in college. Like we would spend the entire practice and do block recon over and over and over again, just trying to.
Because you're a half step slow, you're dead.
Right. That's where you end up with guys who are, like backdooring. If you're backdooring all the time on from 3 technique, you're leaving that front side open. Usually because you're reading things a tick slow. But Jalen, like, is crazy.
So cool.
I don't even know if this is fair, but I think Jalen might be one of those guys that's like really good at one thing, and sometimes the rest can fall by the wayside a little bit. Like when you see like the draft prep, even excusing like the accident, not excusing, but cutting off the accident and just going to like the pro day, wasn't really prepared for that. But when those pads come on, he's just a different guy. Like I would say, if you're like studying film on Jalen Carter, dude, literally you just watch like the first like 2 seconds of every play. It's insane, like how fast he reads, how fast he reads the blocks, how fast he reads where the ball's going, how fast he knows like what people behind him are doing. Like he is really a savant when it comes to that stuff. So yeah, he's insane. He's insane.
No, he is. I know he's a game wrecker. So my answer to the question is he is the most important one. Like DeJean might turn out to be very important depending on how this defense. Just because he that type of defense, his talent and like what they use him for, like the slot's really important there, and then Quinyon Mitchell is going to be very important too. So it's like pretty good situation that you guys have. Moving on, figure out Zach Bond, all right, linebacker. It's like, all right, well, we got a star slot, a star corner, and a star defensive tackle. That's pretty sweet. Like that's a pretty good spot to be in. And they got young guys. Jalix Hunt's coming up. Sweat moves on. I'm really liking him. Yeah. And then his snap count's hilarious. Like it truly was midpoint of the season. They go, okay, let's give him snaps now. Hunt, I mean, Moro Ojomo, whose name I can't remember in my head. I always have to write it because it just messes me up every time. Moro Ojomo. But he also had a very nice game in the Super Bowl as well. Dude, even if Milton Williams moves on, they might have a succession plan there too. It's nice to be the Eagles.
I was walking around New Orleans a couple days before the Super Bowl, and there was like a pack of Eagles fans. I'm talking like 7-8 people. They were all wearing Ojomo jerseys, all of them. So I don't know if like I'm guessing that they knew him. I probably should have asked them.
Family.
I was like, oh, that's interesting. A bunch of people wearing Ojomo jerseys. Yeah.
That was after last year's Super Bowl on the old show. Robert and I were doing it from the stadium, and it was from Allegiant. And Chris Jones's mom hung out with us for like 10 minutes. And she just like, I was like, shouldn't you be like partying somewhere? And she just hung out with us, talking to us, super nice, so sweet, like and awesome. But she's like, I'm just so happy for him. I was like, I bet you are. I bet you are very proud of Chris Jones. I would be too if I was his mother or his parents. So yeah, it's funny when you see the families just running around too, and especially when you get like a long snapper and you get like, why are 5 people wearing the long snapper jerseys? Oh, got it. That's why. All right, last question here. And this is from Lali Low. I think I got that. My question is about the Vikings run game. In short, why does it suck? Is it a scheme thing, talent thing, or running back issue? Chuck, your thoughts on the Vikings run game this last year or recent years?
Attrition.
Yeah, I think it's more O-line.
Yeah. They
I
were
think it's
good
just
at one point, but like you switching Darisaw, you swap out Darisaw for Cam Robinson, it's gonna hurt pretty bad. So,
it's gonna hurt.
Um,
That's kind of, and you had Eddie Ingram for half the year. That wasn't great. Brian O'Neill's after Darisaw got hurt, Brian O'Neill was the only above average starter they had. So it's like, and he's good, but yeah, that's really where I come to, because it's not design. I watched their run game. I'm like, nope, I get why you ran that. And Aaron Jones was super explosive for him, but it's not. It's kind of, they're going to be a pass first team always with Justin Jefferson, but I'm sure O'Connell wants some more balance. So I think it's more the question, it would be talent issue and maybe not having that down to down running back. Jones was good this year, but Cam Akers were wasted touches. Even if he had a couple nice ones, those are wasted touches. I'm just being mean, I know, but
they
love him because he's all the protection stuff and everything. Yeah, I know, but get a protection back that can run. They're out there. It's you got to work with them a little bit. But they had Madison before that. Those were wasted touches. They had Dalvin Cook on his last few years. Those were wasted touches. I would say totally wasted, but they're not above average good touches. So a little bit of running back outside Aaron Jones and he was really good this year, but that's been a thing. But I really do think it's just interior offensive line talent is what I would give my final answer on. It's kind of hard to be a consistent running team if you don't have the dudes in the middle to kind of create those double teams and everything. And then they're up and down. That's the Chiefs. That's the Chiefs what happened in their run game when Joe Tooney moved over. You got Mike Caliendo in there.
Yeah, next thing you know, it's Kareem Hunt in 2025 just getting spam touches. Like, oh, this got very unfun very fast.
Running into guys and I tweeted the one play and it was like both double teams. And the Chiefs offensive line is usually really well coached. It's never about the talent level. It's about the talent level usually. It's never about like their scheme. It's usually you run that. Okay, yep, there's hat on a hat. That guy just lost. It was one run. Travis Kelce blocking across. He gets blown up, runs into Kareem Hunt, who gets knocked off his path. And then both of the double teams, great initial double teams, both of them go to the wrong guy because the Eagles moved so quickly. The linebackers moved. So the angles were wrong on the double teams. So it left 3 guys unblocked and they needed 2 yards. And it was just like, phew, buddy. It was one of those days, huh, Kansas City? That's how it looks sometimes. So, all right, we're closing it out today. Nice little juicy episode.
Yeah.
That was fun with me and Charles, but we'll be back. We're going to start doing Mondays and Thursdays starting next week. Then we'll go to the combine. We'll do a Tuesday and Thursday show. But then starting in March, once we get going, our schedule is going to be Mondays and Thursdays for Football 301. Matt's going to be joining me on Monday next week, but we'll start getting some free agency stuff. Charles and I'm sure we're going to have some mock drafts soon. We got some big board stuff coming up soon. We got plenty of draft content. We'll be going position by position as the weeks come along. But I am Nate Tice. You can find me at Nate_Tice on social media. Charles, where can they find you? What else are you working on this week? Or are you just catching up
I'm working on
that last time? Oh, yeah. You got the bachelor party coming up.
Yeah, I'm working on my expenses this week is what I'm working on.
I know, me too.
The last thing I wrote was post-Super Bowl. I was in the locker room with the Eagles for like an hour just trying to chat to whoever I could, which was very, very difficult task. It was actually funny because I walked in there and I asked Jordan Davis, like, hey, bro, you got like a minute. And he was like, F no, I don't have a minute. And I was like, dude, yeah, fair. Because why am I here? Why am I here right now?
Right.
I, like
Greatest moment of your life. I get it.
Honestly, like 35 minutes in, I noticed he had a 704 tattoo behind his ear, Charlotte area code. So that was my in. And then afterwards, we started talking about Charlotte, and I interviewed him, and he was like, "My bad earlier." I'm like, "Dude, it's fine. You just won a damn Super Bowl. I'm certainly not mad."
I know. That's how it is.
But I appreciate the apology.
Yeah. That's a good way to sum him up.
It was a nice thing to say, but I didn't need him to say that, because I wouldn't be trying to talk to me either if I just wanted to. Like, yeah, my pays to him a beer.
I know, right? Where's that next cigar at?
Yeah,
I'm gonna be cigar in each mouth. It's like the old alligator meme you used to have. Each from Looney Tunes, I think it was. But yeah, just I'm gonna have a cigar in each side of the mouth. But yeah, that's us on Football 301. Make sure to subscribe to us, follow us, rate us 5 stars. You can also jump the line if you rate us 5 stars for those mailbag questions. We're gonna be getting to more of those throughout the offseason. Watch us on YouTube, on the Yahoo Sports YouTube channel. Thanks to Madison Stone behind the scenes. I'll see you guys next time. Have a great weekend.